Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command, World War II World at War, with our first ever PvP, and within that, our first ever yearly summit. Joining me is SirTravis.
Howdy there, Mr. Hitler.
And that's me, Mr. Hitler, and the Emperor, and Mussolini, can't forget him. And in these yearly summits, basically after the end of every year that passes in-game, we're gonna get together and talk about how that year went and maybe talk some shit. Talk about what we think for the future. 39's a pretty short year, so we won't have a lot to talk about, but good time to introduce the concept. So this started in September 1939 is where we started, and the first real big active front of note was Poland. And I remember very specifically that leading up to this point, that is the main thing of the game that you have played before actually playing this PvP was Poland.
This is like the furthest I've gone just in general too. Like I'm just, going right in.
And so how did you perform in Poland compared to how you hoped to perform in Poland? Did you meet your own expectations?
Honestly, I did exactly what I wanted to do, so I'm perfectly happy that Poland died when it did.
Even with your misclick army and whatnot?
Yeah, that was a little bit goofy, but either way.
Are you at all surprised about what units got where from my end, or like exactly how Poland died? Because I know you set up Poland's demise by agreeing to, as the Soviets, march your troops in.
Yeah, I pretty much planned for Poland to die. Like, I did not care at all. I just wanted to spend you some MPPs and leave it at that. There was no point even stressing about trying to last, like, more than it did IRL.
Fair enough, and Poland did fall in the 2 turns. That is very meta in this game. It's like the only meta thing I know, is that it's very meta that you gotta take Poland in 2 turns as the axis, or you're fucking up. 1 turn's probably too quick for scripting reasons, and 3 turns is you're bad at the game. Or you just got unlucky, because luck does play a role in all this. Now, what about China at the beginning? I remember you getting very surprised when I defeated that first unit in China before you could even take a turn. And you messaged me, you already killed the Chinese corps? All right, I surrender.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was shitting myself a little bit because, like, well, damn, that's a whole core gone, you can't just revive them like that, they're gone permanently. Sure, I get more, but that's still 1 less core than I have in 1939, and I could have them now in 1940, but, well, that's 1 less core I don't have.
Well, actually, with China, I think for a lot of these units, you do just kind of get, for infantry units for China, I think some of them do just straight up respawn, like, cores for free around like Chungking or something. I remember that from my allied playthrough anyway, but I couldn't find it in the manual when I went looking for it. Either way, they're not like permagon. Whenever you have a unit, it's already paid for, and it dies, it is significantly cheaper to repurchase it, specifically it, than it is to buy one that hasn't existed before. Like when you go into purchase, and assuming you're not going to get it back for free as China, you will find a core, for example, that is supposed to be 250. It'll have a little asterisk next to it in the purchase, and it'll be more like 150 to put it back together.
Yeah, see that. I didn't know about that. Yeah, I still see my OSS volunteer divisions.
Yeah, so that is a thing that will come in handy for you in China, because really you're infantry focused. But either way, it's China. You're gonna get tons more infantry. You got all those mountains and everything as well.
When in doubt, just throw kids in with guns.
I mean, that's what Hitler did at the end of the war. So, one of the main things I've noticed throughout all of everything that has happened is your very aggressive playstyle, especially in China. I've been noticing in a couple of key points. So up by, let's look at specifically China. What is it? Changchao is one of your cities in kind of like the center north. You started out pretty aggressive there, striking out at my units. Are you capable of stating, like, what was that about? Was there something behind that, or was it just, I see a chance, I'm gonna attack something.
Well, I'll just say this. You took down a core, and I just wanted to cost you at least a couple of MPPs for your turn. Just at least kind of make you feel a little bit of damage, even though you did more damage to me.
You have stayed active in that region, though, actually, because I remember I moved one of the armies of, like, myself right north of your northernmost unit around Chengchao, and then you ended up moving some cores and now an army after this, like, last episode or whatever, into the mountains just to the left of that unit, where I actually ended up putting a second unit, and then you attacked the newly arrived one with that army, and we got kind of like a 3-for-3.
Well, I don't know, that's a little bit classified, but there's more at play than just a little bit of damage when it comes to that army and those cores.
Yeah, I've noticed you've stayed definitely pretty active around that region. Very, very aggressive. I've actually had to move a unit or two. I don't really think much more than that to respond to that, which you might be happy to hear, I suppose. Also, I've noticed you just sent so many cores and shit specifically around Nanning. Let's talk about Nanning, all the way down there in the south.
Oh, yes, yes.
Literally, at this point, you've lined up in a line. Like, what is that, like 4 cores?
Well, let's be real here. We all know how important this area is on the map, especially when it comes to the Hanoi Kunming Railway. And, well...
Yeah, it seems like you've been watching my allied playthrough while going through this. Do you know exactly how the Hanoi Kunming Railroad works in regard to that region? Or do you just know that it's relevant?
I don't remember too much because I did watch that series like months ago. I rewatched some bits just to remember the events because I don't remember all the events. I just know that the south is very important, and if you hold enough, you can eventually just block off that railway. And well, I can't have that.
But you don't know what I have to hold exactly to do that? You're just sending units to the south because you know there's some relevant stuff for that.
I'm pretty sure you have to lose Pekoi and Haikou, however you pronounce it.
They are both related event-wise, but it's completely different events, and even if I lost Pekoi, I know that doesn't actually prevent me from annexing Indochina. Which isn't in the war anyway, and could also just do to be neutral. So it's very interesting to know that you, of course, I wanted to do the same thing. Cut that off because of the Hanoi Kunming Railroad. Although the Hanoi Kunming, that can be cut off regardless of if Indochina surrenders. Did you remember that?
I do not think so.
You could eventually, depending on timing, prevent me from taking over Indochina if you're really successful down there, but depending on timing, you could also fail to stop me from cutting that rail line, because it doesn't actually depend on my ownership of Hanoi proper. That's a separate event that I can do depending on the timing.
Gotcha. Okay, that's important to know.
Yeah, okay. So I was just wondering about that. What do you think about my offensives in China? What do you have to say about that?
It's to be expected. A couple of these have been rough. Like, I know you killed another core down in, I can't even see if my units are covering it. I think it's
Changsha.
Yeah, that one. I know you killed a unit there. My ignorance came into play. I know that one fort I was trying to move a unit into there, but it wouldn't let me. I assume that's zone of control. So
yeah, I had tons of armies around it. You were struggling with like snow and 3 different zones of controls of my army, I think.
Yeah, it just made it impossible to move in there and save that fort.
Yeah, I know I just ended my turn. I barely got that one army in there, but yeah, that fort's deleted now completely, because whenever Japan steps into a Chinese fortification, it just gets deleted, which really is annoying if you ask me, but oh, there it is.
Yeah, that is kind of...
I guess it could be a good thing, because it's like, oh, well, if you retake this, it doesn't face me anymore. But what if, like, I don't know, like, I feel like I should have the option to tear it down or not. I don't feel like it should be automatic. But how's that going? Do you think, like, do you feel like my intended actions in China have been going well? Do you feel like up to this point in China that you've been kind of getting in my way? Like, how do you think that China versus Japan's going?
So I remember you mentioning in DMs how kind of both sides can both kind of win in a theater, and
You can kind
while
of
I don't like,
perceive winning, I feel like both sides can set goals and accomplish them, whatever those goals might be.
and I feel like that is what happening. Sure, I'm not holding you off indefinitely, but you know, you ain't just spearheading through the heart of China.
Do you think it's my goal to spearhead through the heart of China? Do you think I've been trying to do that?
I don't know what you're planning on doing.
Isn't
But-
that the beauty though? Like you don't even know what I'm planning to do. Like, you could set up to try to stop me from doing one thing, and then you go to watch the recording when this finally releases, and it's like, oh, he didn't even try to do that, or was I trying to do that? Who knows?
My gamble is that you're probably playing China long game. Like, you ain't really rushing this right now, and you're just taking your time advancing.
You've kind of seen my approach in China in the Axis PvE now, right? Like, in the beginning, I know you've been watching some of that.
And not really. I've been kind of skimming through it for the event stuff, but I kind of briefly understood what you were doing.
What do you think about the amazing North Sea, which has turned into a front of its own? Which I certainly never expected it to kind of be a front of its own, but yeah, the North Sea turned into a front of its own when I put a couple of submarines in the North Sea along the Norway convoy line, and then you ran a fucking carrier into them.
Well, I don't know how much of an excuse I can make. I just did not expect the subs to be there. Like, I wanted to start getting my formation going to raid that line, but yeah, those subs immediately ended that plan. And I see they're still there, cough cough.
Whoa, Mister's looking in with some hindsight from January on his turn, I see here. But we'll find out what happens there in the next episode. But yeah, so after doing that, I remember at one point you said you were like backing off from there, but yet it's turned into a bit of a flashpoint again.
Well, so here is my answer to that. I was backing off until I realized I don't really care about Norway, so I decided to at least patrol this area so you can't get the jump on me in case you say fuck France and just Barbarossa me, or not Barbarossa, sea line me instantly, and just not even worrying about France.
That would be a very ballsy fucking plan, to just load up some amphibious transports from Germany proper and then just try to like jump right over into the UK. That would be a hell of a plan.
It's a hell of a plan, but not impossible.
Not impossible, yeah. That would be some travel time with normal amphibious transports, though, to actually get there. It would take maybe like an extra turn to set up, at least, I feel like.
But still, my intention was not to necessarily start raiding the coast again, but more so just scout the area, I would say.
True. So this flashpoint is definitely a big exchange of MPPs pretty early on, when I haven't conquered an insane amount of MPPs yet, and you are pretty much doing everything over here with like mostly UK MPPs. There's France too, but France doesn't make a lot of MPPs to begin with.
Yeah, France ain't doing much for me right now. They're just kind of chilling on the Imagino.
And so what about our good old phony war era? What do you think's going on? How are you feeling about just hiding behind the Maginot? You haven't really tried any offenses there, except for using your strategic bomber on that one mine.
I mean, hey, I see an opportunity and I take it, you know?
Did you feel that what you got in terms of bombing the mine was worth it versus the damage to your plane that like went in and had to kind of guard it?
Yes, because I recall even you taking some damage as well with your fighters.
Uh-huh. Okay. It's definitely been a quiet, phony war period, and it doesn't work exactly like it does in real life, of course, because every turn that goes by the time you get the next turn back, you know, it's been a month. Do you have any predictions for when shit's gonna kick off in Europe?
Well, if I had a deck of cards I had to gamble on, I'd either bet on you doing it earlier or later. And I don't know which one it is, but I feel like you would not do it directly on the dot. I feel like you would either wait or do it next turn.
So either next turn or much later is kind of your assumption.
Yes. Well, not like exactly next turn. Maybe the turn after that, but earlier than it was historically. Or later than it was historically.
Okay. Now, I've also noticed, of course, that you have been doing a lot of diplomacy. And, dude, you haven't seen it yet, but I took like 10 fucking minutes of an episode to talk about your diplomacy choices. So, we have the first one, which was interesting to me. We had a little conversation about this, was Persia. You put at least 50 chits, or 50 points into chits to turn Persia. Anything you could say about that?
Well, personally, I'm a big fan of British Petroleum, and well, I like oil, and they have a lot of oil, and that can help me.
That is true, but now also you definitely know that later, when the USSR is in the war, you will get an event to do the historical invasion of Persia, with the USSR coming in from the north, taking most of it, and the UK claiming all the oil on the coast. You only kind of realize that after you probably invested the points. So
Yeah.
Are you still going to try to turn them, or are we looking at more of an invasion potential? Because it's going to be one or the other, and I'm going to be able to tell really fucking quickly.
I will say I don't know yet. Like, it depends on your diplo actions. Like, if you start diploing certain people in the Baltics, then, or sorry, not Baltics, Balkans, then that might change my perspective on what I want to do with Persia.
And then, so we also have Iraq. Now, this one was probably the most interesting one to me out of all of them.
Well, Iraq, same story. I love oil, but also, well, who doesn't love getting Iraq involved in warfare?
And are you aware of the history of Iraq in World War II?
Honestly, no. Not much, anyway.
Okay, because the history of Iraq in World War II and how you can kind of play through that in this game is what made this choice so very interesting to me, for sure. So it's very interesting to see that you are going to be getting, if you stick to it, of course, Iraq in the Allies, you know, assuming I don't interfere somehow. That's a really interesting one. But I noticed it's not just these two, you know, you've split your diplo between 3 different countries at once, and that's a pretty ambitious undertaking, I would think. Because you've also gone for Ireland.
Alright, so something I did not notice. Now, this upsets me a little bit. So, apparently Ireland is under the USA, and I did not notice that.
I did not know that either off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's...
But at the end of the day, that's not too crazy, because it just means that, you know, once the ability for America to send MPPs to UK kicks in, that if Ireland joined under the USA, then the USA would just have more of an MPP pool with which to send MPPs over to the UK.
True.
So there is that. And I noticed that you definitely probably premeditated this quite a bit, because you haven't commandeered the 2 southern ports from Ireland.
Yeah.
That is something that I definitely noticed, was that. So 3 countries at once for Diplo. That's definitely ambitious, definitely long term. Are you content with your decisions?
Well, with Ireland, I'm a little bit disappointed. But the other 2, if I dig deep enough in my brain, I can kind of understand the choices, but even I am still clueless.
Yeah. And so, what do you think about my Diplo actions so far?
I'm very surprised, because I don't recall seeing any pop-ups for Diplo from you.
So, I just seem like completely silent for Diplo. So what could I be doing with my MPPs, I wonder?
Spending it on research, armies, who knows? German space warfare, who knows?
And who knows, even like you said, if you expect things to kick off, in a certain time period, where is it even going to kick off, That's the beauty. We have only the intel that we have. Everything else is a guess, and we're just trying to do our best. Set goals and see if we hit them, and see who sets goals that gets them to a better end.
And who knows, we can always hit our goals together, even though they contradict each other.
Yeah, and hitting goals is one thing, though. Hitting goals that gets us to a victory, that's a completely different thing.
My curiosity is what kind of victory you're going for in the first place.
So actually, this is a great time I'm going to pull up the victories, because there's a couple of them and we haven't really discussed them. So I'm going to tell you what all the victories are. So you've already seen the decisive ones is like for Axis that incorporates taking over the capitals of basically every allied nation in the Eastern Hemisphere and holding on to your own, as well as some things like Egypt and whatnot. And then but not America. And then for the Allies, it includes taking back France, because, assuming it's lost, holding on to pretty much every single capital, and taking over the entire Axis as well. It's a little stronger of a goal there, because in the long run, in this game and in history, the Allies have the advantage the longer it goes on, because America, once they enter the war, they're making more money than the entire Axis combined all by themselves.
Gotta love the military-industrial complex.
But after the 2 decisive victories, there are, other than just a stalemate where not one condition for any victory is met, there are 4 other victory types, and 3 of them are actually for the Axis, due to how difficult it is to pull off a victory as the Axis. So as the Allies, there's not a major victory like the Axis can have. You either have a decisive victory as the Allies, a minor victory, or a stalemate. And stalemate's debatable on, who's winning. The Allied minor victory is if you have Paris, London, Moscow, Washington, D.C., Chongqing, Delhi, Manila, and Canberra, meaning you'd have to have France, basically, the UK proper, Moscow, so USSR would pretty much still need to be alive. America can't have lost its capital. China's primary capital still needs to be in your possession. India still needs its capital. You need to own the Philippines and Australia for a minor victory.
Well, damn.
So anything less than that accomplished by the end date in early 97 means you would be getting a stalemate, or I would be getting a kind of victory. With that in mind, what do you think your odds are?
Well, it depends on a lot of factors, and I don't feel confident in a lot of those factors.
Because it's a long game, and if it does go to the end date in 47, then we still have a situation here of the victory conditions, can still be accomplished, without wiping out somebody else. The tide can turn in the favor of the Allies, as it should, but potentially maybe not in time to even accomplish that minor victory.
It depends on... I still need a decent win, midway IRL. I would need something to kind of help turn the tide a little bit more, especially if I need the Philippines.
Yeah, you need the Philippines, you need Moscow, you need to hold on to DC, you need to take back Paris if you lose it, which I don't know how anyone could hold on to France, though. You need to make sure you hold London. Chongqing, the capital of China, needs to be held through to the end as well. Capital of India, Australia. I think those are really big ones, right? Is the Philippines. How do you get the Philippines ready? And Chongqing, holding on to that is tough.
Pretty much. It sounds like that would require a perfect defensive stalemate everywhere, but taking back the Philippines and also taking back France. But then everywhere else, as long as you can hold,
Yeah, with this,
Or at
it's
least-
like, with this victory, it's like I could still hold all of Germany and Italy, and that's fine, and you could still accomplish this. I could be still in a lot of Russia, you just have to hold Moscow. There could still be a battle over China, you would just need Chongqing, which is pretty far forward though with the current lines, like the initial lines anyway. And then, well, India, you know, that's another one. So then there's the 3 Axis victories. So let's start with what is, you know, the hardest to achieve. If I'm not getting a decisive, I could earn an Axis major victory if I hold Berlin, Rome, Paris, London, Moscow, Tokyo, Seoul, Chongqing, and either Delhi or Canberra. This translates to I can't lose Germany or Italy. I can't lose Japan, like none of my starting nations there. I must take and hold Paris. I must take and hold London and Moscow. Those are big asks. I must take and hold Chongqing. I must hold Seoul, which is in Korea. And then it's my choice on whether or not I want to go land heavy and take Delhi from India, or try to take Australia and take Canberra.
So pretty much, wait, you said that's their minor victory?
This is the Axis major victory. This is
Oh,
one
okay,
step
okay.
down from a decisive victory, but the Axis have 4 different potential victories, as opposed to the Allies, which have 2, decisive and minor.
Gotcha.
So that one's, of course, pretty demanding. I'd say it might even be more demanding than the Allied minor victory. Yeah, I'd say it probably is. Would you agree
'cause
with that?
You would need to do Sea Lion for that victory.
Yeah, Sea Lion, and I need to be winning in the USSR, like, a good bit. And I need to take, you know, stuff that Japan never dreamed of taking.
You would pretty much need to take China all the way to Lanzhou.
No, because only Chongqing. So China would only need to be held back behind Chongqing. That's their first capital for this game. Then we have the Axis minor victory. And this one is where it becomes a lot easier for the Axis. The Axis will win this if they hold Berlin, Rome, Tokyo, so can't lose any of the 3 Axis. So if Italy falls, you know, Operation Torch goes in and then jump over into Italy like in real life, then this is gone. You can't do this. But if I hold all 3 capitals of my start and Seoul, and I also hold Paris and Manila, so France and the Philippines, I can get a minor victory. That is suddenly a lot more achievable sounding.
Yeah, pretty much, because you're always guaranteed to take France. I don't know if there's a single strategy that would make it impossible for you to take France. All you would have to focus on is taking Manila. Hell, you could pretty much lose all of China.
Probably take Manila. Taking Manila, that's no problem. Like, taking Manila is no problem. These goals, to achieve an Axis minor victory, it means that the Allies essentially have to completely fail in a counter-offensive by May of 1947, which is the end date.
Gotcha.
So it's like you haven't taken over even Italy, which was done after Operation Torch. You know, America enters the war. You haven't retaken the Philippines, and you haven't retaken France. No successful D-Day, and no successful approach on Japan via the Pacific. And I hold everything else, including Korea. So, like, this accounts for, like, if China succeeds and then pushes all the way to Korea, that would actually be enough to stop me from achieving a minor victory. And then there's one final victory type, and that is the Axis tactical victory. This is probably the easiest victory to achieve in the game. This is basically saying, well, like, tactically, you know, you did better than in real life. Because the conditions for this are that I hold either, like, one of these: Berlin, Rome, or Tokyo. But this is kind of like a final thing. This is a final thing. This is a if the above conditions are not met thing. If anything else is met, then that takes precedence. So, like, the Allied minor victory didn't say anything about taking over these capitals. So you could still meet the Allied minor victory without needing to worry about sniping a capital, for example. This is like the final thing. Like, maybe the Axis got its ass beat, but for example, if I stop you from holding, let's say, Chongqing, so you can't even achieve your minor victory, or I stop you from holding Manila, you know, just one of those things you needed, then this victory would take effect.
Gotcha.
But those are the victory conditions. Which one do you think is most likely by the end of it, or which two?
I would say either the minor victory for me, which is where I need to have at least, or I need to have France and Manila, correct? For the
minor victory for allies is Paris, London, Moscow, DC, Chungking, Delhi, and Manila and Canberra.
I feel like that is probably, like, if I were to win, that's probably what I would get. And for you, I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of tough to say right now, but I feel like you would at least have the possibility to get that tactical victory, because that just seems pretty easy.
I feel like the tactical victory would have to be specifically chased, because I'd have to deny you one of the things on the minor victory, while still somehow, like, potentially losing everything else. I feel like it would be more realistic to achieve the minor victory, because Berlin, Rome, Paris, Tokyo, Seoul, Manila. I just have to keep you out of France and the Philippines to win that. And, you know, hold my capitals. It's not actually that insane of an ask. So I feel like, yeah, definitely the minor victories are going to be the most achievable, because a decisive victory for the Allies, that's asking a lot. And even a major victory for the Axis, you got to pull off a sea lion.
And we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. But I think we've covered most everything, because again, 39 was a pretty short year, so I figured let's just fill it in with this talk about the victory conditions. Unless there's anything else you want to point out, I think we've recapped and covered 39.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Not much has happened this year, besides, well, ships sinking in the Atlantic.
Alright, well in that case, that's the summit for 1939. After this, we'll be releasing episodes for 1940, and we'll come back in 1941 to talk about how 1940 goes. And there's bound to be some interesting things happening in 1940, that's to say the least.
A full year from now.
And with that, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.